It's such a ridiculously simple thing. And yet, because providers don't look at the whole person and don't put two and two together, women are bouncing from specialist to specialist, not getting the support they need, losing bone and muscle, losing their minds, losing their figures and their feelings of self-worth. And all they had to do was just to their diet, maybe take a couple supplements and add in hormones. It is so infuriatingly simple.
I see this story all the time too, and it
Ugh.
does infuriate me when they go to doctors, even quote unquote menopause specialists, they tell me, and
Oh,
they leave crying because they
yes.
don't have the answers. They're not heard. They're gaslit. Well, it's a real pleasure to have Esther Blum on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Zora. I'm so stoked to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on today because I just love what you're doing in the menopause space. Your Instagram is so awesome. And I actually learn a lot from you and your podcast as well. And I'll have all of this, the links to this in the show notes. But I want to start, I don't really know your story. Like what pulled you into the menopause space? You're a nutritionist or registered dietitian and all that. And you are menopause coaching. So what was that moment you realized, oh, okay, I have got to help more women out here?
I was a hospital dietitian the first 5 years of my career, working in cardiology units in the hospital in Beth Israel, New York. But I had a side hustle, private practice that I would do after hours. And one of the first women to walk into my practice was a therapist. And she was like, I'm in menopause. I sit all day. I have 2 days a week to work out. And you need to help me get this first 10 pounds or this last 10 pounds off. So I was in my 20s at the time, and I said, I better really get a handle on this quick. And fortunately, even while I was in the hospital, I did a functional medicine training that enabled me to have the tools to start working with diet. And we really started working on her own unique carb tolerance. We took out any complex starches other than fruits and vegetables and said unlimited protein, you can have fat, have a lot of fiber. And she lost 10 pounds. And she did this on her own. I didn't even put her on this. She did that cayenne pepper, maple syrup, hot water fast 1 day a week. And between all of those things, she lost the first 10 pounds or the last 10 pounds. But then as time went on, I started really integrating Dutch test and GI map and really doing deep dives on blood work and hormones and then HRT. Now, the interesting thing is in 2002, when that Women's Health Initiative study came out, I remember my mom had her hysterectomy. She was on HRT, and I was like, Mom, you've got to get off. You're going to get, because my mother had a cardiac history. And I said, you've got to get off. You're going to stroke out. And I pulled her off. She was like, okay, whatever. And she went off her hormones, which to this day breaks my heart. I'm like, I can't believe I did that to her. But we did the best we could with what we had, the knowledge we had at the time. So that's really how I got into it, though, was because there was a need. And there's going to be 1.2 billion women in menopause by 2030. And physicians are getting a whopping 1 hour of perimenopause and menopause education in their entire medical school training. And at least in the United States, the FDA has approved vaginal estrogen, estrogen patches, and oral progesterone. We still have not approved testosterone for women. It's considered an off-label use. But, we have hormones available for women and doctors are not learning it. So there's a really huge gap. So not only have I taught my own clients how to advocate, but I too have moved into the advocacy space at this point because I'm working on getting medical school education updated because this is nonsense at this point.
You've done so much education ever since. And I think sometimes your clients push you into this when you get all the basics, the nutrition, the diet and exercise, and you're like, well, why isn't it moving? Like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
then you move into hormones or to the Dutch testing or the gut issues, and you can go deeper and deeper. And I think sometimes it's our clients who really push us to learn more and more. And so it is interesting that your own mother, is she back on hormones or she would
She passed away a few years ago, but she went into AFib and 3 weeks later was gone. She went into heart failure. And could I say it was a deficiency of hormones? Yes. Could I also say she had COVID shots and was boosted out the wazoo because she was in assisted living? Also, yes. And we know PubMed, this is not conspiracy theories, published medical research on the cardiovascular inflammation that has followed suit from these COVID vaccines. And so I believe, it was a combination for her, which is really unfortunate. It's devastating. She was only 83.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I've
thank
lost
you.
my own mother anyways as well through breast cancer when she was only 57. So sometimes I feel like when people still have their mothers around, I'm like, wow, that's just amazing. Amazing. So you're yourself going through the transition now, or are you already on the other side?
I am done, girlfriend. I had a hysterectomy September 24th of 2025. I am 55 and I was having the most debilitating menstrual cramps on my left side. It felt like someone had a searing hot poker going all the way from my left ovary out through my back. And it was keeping me awake 3 to 4 nights a week because it would last. Once the cramps and inflammation started, I was popping Advil and Tylenol like Tic Tacs. I would have to stack each onto the other. I started developing debilitating migraines. Like I spent my birthday vomiting, nauseous, and my GY, I had imaging done. I had 8 fibroids, but they were all on the right side. So I was like, why am I getting this left-sided pain? And she said, well, I'm guessing you have undiagnosed endometriosis. So we talked about all the options, and it was like, it made the most sense to just take out my uterus, and the fallopian tubes, but leave the ovaries. And I was already on a really nice cocktail of HRT. So it turned out I had adenomyosis, which is a sister to endometriosis. And after surgery, my pain from recovery of surgery was so much less than what I was experiencing day to day. Within 2 weeks, I was back walking 6 miles a day. I was like, I lost 5 pounds overnight because my inflammation was gone. Even post-operatively, I was less inflamed. That's how bad it was. I'm so grateful. And my surgeon was awesome. I was like, what do you say when I'm knocked out? Like, throw in a boob job, maybe a tummy tuck. He was like, no. But like the team was so great. I have the teeniest of teeny scars, and I don't even care about the scars. I'm so grateful not to be in pain all the time. But it's interesting, even though I was on a really awesome hormone cocktail, we reduced my estrogen, but we bumped up my testosterone, and my progesterone's about the same. So yeah, it was great.
So interesting I do now recall your episode, I think with Dr. Carrie Jones, and you were talking about adenomyosis and the pain that happens when you get fibroids. It's real. This is where a lot of women struggle, especially in this perimenopause phase too. And it seems to be getting worse at times as their hormones are fluctuating. But what a lot of menopause doctors or coaches these days, not when you're in the menopause space, usually they're trying other things first, like progesterone or an IUD or other things. Did you try some of those before? Because you said you were on hormone therapy anyways, right?
Yeah, I'm actually on 450 milligrams of sustained release progesterone. So, because
the higher dosage. Yeah.
Yeah, because my insomnia was so bad. I had Lyme and mold, and I have had a lot of insomnia struggles. So it's so much better now because I don't have the inflammation going on in my body. I mean, we cannot underestimate the impact that systemic inflammation has on our nervous system, on our gut. My gut was also really inflamed and pissed off. It's much better now. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
So I imagine then you've probably tried all the low-hanging fruit, just didn't work. And then there comes a time you just go, and people who have been in so much pain and struggling, and they tried everything, the relief that they get, unbelievable. And it is life-changing. And I know chronic pain more than anyone else because I had osteoarthritis and hip pain. And chronic and it's debilitating. And I have so much more empathy for anyone living with chronic pain. I hate that I had to go through it, but at the same time, you go, well, there's probably some lessons to be learned here. And when you get, well, I had two hip replacements, which at 54, now I'm 55 like you, but I just was, yeah, my life is completely different now when you live pain free. And I tried the hormones and then the low hanging fruit. Who wants an operation, right?
Yeah.
I think most people who get in this situation have tried it all, but surgery usually is the last resort.
But that being said, there's no shame in it, obviously. And look at the relief it brought to you and to me. And yes, I have a functional medicine GYN, Dr. Suzanne Fensky. She's one of my dear friends. And we did everything. She said to me, "You are my most educated patient." Like I came to her with solutions too. I mean, we partnered together. We did everything. And I was doing castor oil packs and an anti-inflammatory diet and turmeric and ginger, all the things. It just, when you have 8 fibroids and one's the size of a kiwi and one's the size of a golf ball, like it's not going to go good. It's just, it doesn't, no amount. There comes a point, and this is where we all have this reckoning, right? Because we're like, functional medicine can fix it. And there's almost like this arrogance around it. And I'm calling myself out on this. I can fix everything. And you know what? We can't. Sometimes that's the hard, honest truth. Some things work really well for people. Others, it does not as at all. I have patients with Allos syndrome. Some women
What's that? Sorry, what is
it's a
that?
connective tissue disorder, and it causes just a host of complications and chronic pain and pelvic floor collapse, rectal prolapse or uterine prolapse. I mean, severe constipation, pains out the wazoo. And I have a patient with Ehlers-Danlos who hormones saved her life. And then I have another who tried HRT and could not tolerate it at all. It made her feel like a dumpster fire. So it's like everyone is so different, and we have to take into consideration bioindividuality. What's your genetic makeup? What are your detox pathways looking like? What does your inflammation look like? What does your gut function look like? So everyone is so unique, and one woman's hormones are another woman's poison sometimes, or one woman's hysterectomy is another woman's joy. Some women do terribly after hysterectomies, but I was on already so much support, but I definitely still felt like something's still off. I added in 400 milligrams of CoQ10. I added in 5 grams of creatine a day that I'll probably push up to 10. And I take taurine. I did have to redo my supplements a bit after hysterectomy because I'm still, believe it or not, like your body's still recovering. I'm still fatigued a lot. And I'm like, duh, you just had a surgery a couple months ago. Just because you went home the same day doesn't mean it's not a surgery.
Sometimes we're in this health and wellness space or even the biohacking
Yeah.
space, and we want to supercharge everything. We want to go faster. We have the tools, we have the resources, and so we get a little impatient. I think sometimes we think our expectations are so high, but we're still human, and these
Yeah.
extra things that we do can only go so far. I think in some ways, some things would help us get better, but we kind of still get very impatient after a surgery, just want to get your life back together again.
Yeah.
And I think also sometimes I was very much like you when I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. I was like, I'm a biohacker. Like, I'll hack this, like, whatever. Like, I didn't even know what that meant at the beginning, but I'll get it. I'll hack it. I have the resources. I have amazing doctors and regenerative medicine specialists on my podcast. I had access to them. And when these don't work, you're shocked. And I still believe the body can heal. It knows. I just ran out of time and ran out of money. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. If I want to experiment with stem cells, I need another 6 months and $10,000.
Yeah.
I want to get my life back now. So it's time for surgery. And it really taught me a lesson that sometimes shit happens. We, even doing all the right things, you get stuck sometimes and say, okay. And I always think, well, there could be worse. I'm not complaining. I know what it is. I have a solution. And that's already, I think, when people have a diagnosis, at least after they've been searching over and over and over again for answers, they feel relief because they've got a solution, whether it's a drug or a surgery or some
Yeah.
new protocol, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the fibroids, though, because I understood that fibroids get better as women get through the menopause transition. They shrink or they get better. But I've heard a lot of women in my community too who it seems to get worse. And some women would say, oh, it's the estrogen causing them to
That's
grow.
right.
And what are some of the myths or truths about fibroids and menopause and hormones?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I asked Suzanne, I was like, did I do this to myself? Because I did early intervention HRT, but my body needed it and benefited from it. And I did add estrogen into my protocol, even though my periods up until about 6 months before my hysterectomy, they were somewhat still regular, but I did add an estrogen. And I was like, shit, did I fuel this? She was like, no, not at all. This is just a product of perimenopause. And I looked again to my mom, who had a fibroid the size of a grapefruit. She had a hysterectomy when she was 49, and she was not on any estrogen whatsoever. So we do get these estrogen spikes. Our estrogen can be in perimenopause 200 in the morning and 1100 by 2 p.m. Like, we get these massive surges. I always say it's the ovary's final hurrah. It's like the fireworks finale, and your body is kicking out these bursts to try and raise your circulating estrogen levels. That's also why women tend to pack on extra body fat and that menopause, because fat and cholesterol are precursors to hormones. Is it possible that the estrogen replacement that I added in have exacerbated the fibroid growth? It could have, but it's very likely that I had fibroids long before I even went on HRT, and just was a byproduct of perimenopause. I also had like ruptured cysts. Like, I almost went to the ER one Thanksgiving Day one year when I was hosting, of course, like 15 people that day. It was just like excruciating. And that was even before I was on estrogen. So it's unknowable, but I would still say the benefits of early intervention HRT far outweigh the downsides, because we lose the most, and you speak to this all the time in your Instagram, we lose the most amount of muscle and bone in the last 2 years of perimenopause. Nobody knows that, and we lose them so quickly. Nobody knows that. They think it happens in our 60s. I'm like, you should be getting a baseline bone density test in your 40s, between 42 and 45, not 65, when you've been 10 years post-menopause and your bones are already frail and
Oh,
osteopenic.
I've heard interviewed some bone experts who say, no, get it in your 20s. I mean, we get it. You
Oh,
may even be
interesting.
surprised because with the diet and the lifestyle, like the sad American diet, for example,
Yeah.
that can be doing a number on your bones. And not everybody has strong bones when you're in your 20s, but it also gives you a baseline to understand and in your 20s. And sometimes Dr. Doug Lucas, have you interviewed him? He's
Oh, gotta
brilliant,
go.
and he's a bone expert. He's a bone doctor, and he said he had osteoporosis, or maybe it was osteopenia. Don't quote me on this. When he was in his 20s, I was like, wait. Hasn't
No,
he wasn't a bone
how?
doctor back then, but yeah, he said it was a really bad diet that he had, and that's just. But he doesn't have high fracture risk, so. That's a whole other story. You can have osteoporosis, you can have low bone mineral density, or have this diagnosis on a DEXA, but yet have strong bones. And that's why I tell a lot of people to go get a REM scan, REMS, because it tells you not only the bone density, but it tells you the bone quality, the bone strength, and what is the actual chance of fracture. Because I don't care about a number on a DEXA scan. I care, am I going to break a bone? What are the probabilities? And so I think it's one of these things we get so scared by this number or
Yeah.
this low bone density, but what does that really mean? Because it's just one marker. So that's why he says get your DEXA as early as you can. Not that you do it all the time, but you get a baseline in your 20s. I'm going to send my kids to do this because, like, you want to know. And then you could wait another
Yes.
5 or 10 years before you do this again, unless you had you found something and then you want to go into it. But I would far sooner do a REMS scan than a DEXA.
And also, I'm sure you've read Estrogen Matters by Dr. Avram Blooming. He cites so much research that shows that early intervention estrogen, it also strengthens the bones in a way where they can withstand impact. If there's a fall, it almost gives them like a bendability so they don't snap. And it's, again, far better than, and you should still be getting vitamin D, boron, K1 and K2, magnesium, all the cofactors. And yes, eating collagen and bone broth and protein and strength training. But above all else, estrogen is scientifically proven to make the biggest difference and have the largest impact. And so we cannot throw that research away either. We have to really understand the benefits of it, of estrogen.
That's actually the one thing. There are very few things that everyone agrees on when it comes to hormone therapy or dosing and yes or no, but everyone seems to agree, menopause societies and experts out there, like, yeah, the estrogen is good for the bone. Like, there's no doubt. You can prescribe it for osteoporosis or people who have low bone density, but you wouldn't prescribe it for somebody. There's some doctors who are so stinky and they're like, well, you haven't reached menopause age yet and you're not complaining that much and won't really give it to you, which to me seems ridiculous. But if you have low bone density, it seems like they all agree they would give it to you. So that shows you just how if everyone agrees on it. Wow. Okay. That definitely does something. So I want to talk a little bit about, because you do have a lot of women in your community. You have a fabulous community. You have people you're helping. You've been working with women for many, many years. And in midlife, we so often feel misunderstood and dismissed. When someone comes to you, someone new in your community that you're working with, what is the most common frustration you hear when they first come to you?
Oh, that they feel like a dumpster fire, and they're told, one woman, doctor literally told her to change sex positions. I'm not even kidding. That enrages me. I mean, we laugh because it's so horrific, but it enrages me. Or they're told it's all in their head. I can't even tell you, this is like what kills me, is how many women say, I must be crazy. No, like, when is a woman ever wrong about what is going on inside of her body? My famous gaslighting story is when I referenced earlier that I had insomnia. Well, I had severe Lyme and mold toxicity and was also probably in the beginning of perimenopause. And I went to this doctor sobbing. I was getting 2 to 4 hours of broken sleep a night. That's it for years. So I go to the doctor and I am just a mess. And he literally handed me a copy of the Kabbalah, which is a book of Jewish mysticism. I am Jewish and he was Jewish. Told me to put it under my pillow and then handed me a prescription for Xanax and said, don't worry, it's not addictive. P.S., it's highly addictive. So it was devastating. Like, when women are gaslit, the implications for what unfolds in her life are tremendous, because she shuts down. She starts internalizing messages from someone who doesn't know her or doesn't know her body, and then says, well, I must be crazy. Or they all say, not all, but a lot of women say, well, I guess I have to live with this the rest of my life. This is just the rest of my life now, even though they're not sleeping, they've gained weight, they're exhausted, they have no libido, they can't listen to their husband's breathing or chewing. They want to kill everyone, and they wake up 10 pounds heavier without changing a thing. And they feel like they are a shell of themselves watching their lives pass them by. And so to actually reprogram women to understand that there is a light at the end of the vaginal tunnel and that they don't have to tolerate shit menopause care, and that they can actually demand more for themselves. like they literally come back to life. And I interviewed actually one of my former clients, Stacy, who when she came to me, she was wearing a hoodie and the hoodie was pulled over her head and she was a shell of herself. She wasn't sleeping. She was a fitness instructor. So she would get up and she would slog her way through classes, teaching, teaching, teaching. She was eating 40 grams of protein a day,
Oh my gosh.
like 1,100, 1,200 calories at most.
Oh wow.
And then would be in a haze all afternoon. And she has 3 boys and a husband and was trying to raise her boys and just was in a living hell. And the first thing we did, obviously, was fix her sleep. I sent her to Dr. Suzanne. And once she started sleeping, I was like, get on progesterone now. So she did. Once she started sleeping, then we began refeeding her, refueling her. She now eats 120 to 140 grams of protein. She lifts 4 days a week. She's down 30 pounds. But it wasn't overnight. But she said, you brought me back to life, because she had been to almost 20 doctors.
Oh, that's devastating. That's
Devastating.
time,
And
money wasted, and the
yes,
impact that has the stress
yes,
on her health is
yes,
is is magnifying everything on top of it. It's
it
terrible. I'm
is.
so
And
sorry. Yeah.
you dial into the money too. I mean, I joke that I could have a Kelly bag by now with all the money I spent looking just to even find a proper Lyme doctor. Like I was told a million times I didn't have Lyme, and my doctor was like, you didn't do the right tests. So
No.
when I went to him, he's like, we're going to redo all your tests. And sure enough, I had Lyme, I had co-infections. I had to do home remediations 2 or 3 times for the mold. Like it was not inexpensive at all. But I was like, I will sell the rights to my firstborn child if I can get my life back and feel like a human again while I'm taking care of other humans. So yes, my goal is, and this is the advocacy work I'm doing now, my goal is to have, I never want to have another woman in my practice show up in tears. I never want to have another woman be gaslit. I want her to be able to go to any provider in any specialty and they have enough knowledge to know, hey, put 2 and 2 together. You know what? I'm going to refer you to a hormone specialist. You probably have some perimenopause going on here. I want you to address that. Or a psychiatrist. Imagine you go to the psychiatrist and you say, I think I need anti-anxiety meds, or I'm super depressed right now. I want to kill myself. And the psychiatrist says, wow, she's like in her 40s or even late 30s. She's starting to exhibit signs of hormone changes. Or the cardiologist, right? I went to a cardiologist because I had all these heart palpitations and my heart was pounding at night. It wasn't a cardiac issue. It was a hormone deficiency. My
Hmm.
heart doesn't pound anymore. So imagine you go to any specialist and the specialist says, by the way, you're probably in perimenopause. It's such a ridiculously simple thing. And yet, because providers don't look at the whole person and don't put 2 and 2 together, women are bouncing from specialist to specialist, not getting the support they need, losing bone and muscle, losing their minds, losing their figures and their feelings of self-worth. And all they had to do was just to their diet, maybe take a couple supplements and add in hormones. It is so infuriatingly simple.
Yeah.
So that is the goal.
I see this story all the time too, and it
Ugh,
does infuriate me when they go to doctors, even quote unquote menopause specialists, they tell me, and
oh,
they leave crying because they
yes.
don't have the answers. They're not heard. They're gaslit. In fact, one of the more popular reels that I made was was it the 5 phrases to have your doctor take your menopause concerns more seriously.
Mm,
And wow, that one went like wildfire because people were like, I need these 5 phrases. This has happened to me. I've been how these discussions go, and it's so sad. I mean, it's good that the reel went viral, people see it and they have these phrases,
yeah.
but it's so depressing to see the stories, when you read the comments, it's so sad. And and we still have a lot of work to do. But the good thing
Yeah.
is that we're learning. There are books out there and podcasts like yours and mine. And it's funny, some people are like, oh, don't get your information on Instagram. I'm like, well, if we got the information from our doctors, we wouldn't need to go to social media. But
That's right.
we're trying, and in the meantime, there's information, misinformation, whatever. It's all out there. We just have to learn how to filter it. But if we just had the care that we need, or we felt like we were heard, then we honestly would not be going to social media for these things.
100%.
So I want to move into a little bit about, because you did mention the menopause, and I think weight is an issue for a lot of women during this transition. So what do you, and I see a lot of women, and I'm sure someone listening now, who are like literally doing everything that they're told to eat clean and exercise,
Right.
manage the stress, and they still feel inflamed, exhausted, stuck.
Yes.
So one, I want to talk a little bit, why do these usual health strategies backfire, and what can a woman do to help her get the body that she's wanting to live in?
So often these strategies backfire because women can be eating so-called clean, but they're not understanding the biological needs of a midlife body versus a body in our 20s and 30s. In your 20s and 30s, you cut calories, you can do skip meals, intermittent fast, and you're going to be down 5 pounds by the end of the week. In our 40s and 50s, we actually have to fuel our bodies much more. We actually have to stoke our metabolic fire, and we do this in a few ways. So one is severely cutting calories puts more stress on a midlife body. It raises our cortisol. Our bodies think we're in danger. Starvation puts a lot of stress on the bodies, on a midlife body. So all of a sudden we go into conservation mode. And some women lose weight initially, but then they plateau and regain, especially if carbs are restricted. I cannot stress enough the importance of carbohydrates in midlife. And I'm not talking about Twizzlers and popcorn, obviously. I'm talking about fruit and vegetables. And I promise you, ladies, no one's getting fat on papayas and bananas. So eat fresh fruit. I don't care if it's, quote, a higher sugar fruit like pineapple or papaya, because there's so much anti-inflammatory nutrients in them. And no one is binging out on plates of fruit. It's just, we can all snort lines of M&Ms off the counter, but nobody is like, oh, I had 3 oranges today. Woo, big deal. It's so much fiber anyway.
It's
So
not the fruit that's making
it's
you
not the
have these
fruit that's
issues.
making you fat. It's not. And complex starches, sweet potatoes, legumes, if you tolerate them, lentils and beans, plantains, cassava, quinoa, winter squashes, all of those are rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, all of those are complex starches. And we need to have them actually with our dinners. And most women, we were taught never to have starch at night. But guess what? When you have starch coupled with, of course, protein and fibrous vegetables, you're going to get an insulin bump. Even with fiber, you're still going to get an insulin bump with carbs. However, what does that insulin do? Well, it tamps down your cortisol. So all of a sudden, if you've been waking up at 3 a.m. in a state of fight or flight because your blood sugar is dropping and your cortisol is going up, once you start fueling yourself with carbs at night, you're going to sleep much better. Now, while you do that, you also need to bump up your protein a minimum 4 to 6 ounces, minimum 3 meals a day. If you are intermittent fasting, it is very difficult to meet your protein needs. You're going to have to supplement and have a protein snack within that window, plus your meals. But bumping up your protein, it's going to stabilize your blood sugar. So it's going to fuel your neurotransmitters. It raises your serotonin and dopamine, so you're mentally focused. It clears out a lot of brain fog. It stabilizes your blood sugar, so you're not having hot flashes all night and your blood sugar isn't spiking and dipping all day and all night. Support your adrenals as well. So you pair that with carbohydrates, fibrous carbs, and the fibrous carbs help convert T4 to T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. for me too, I was eating very low carbs, like well under 100 grams a day, and I could not lose weight. And when I bumped it up to 120 grams of carbs a day, I lost 5 pounds. I was like, this is awesome. I don't just apply the rules to my clients, I apply it to myself too. And carbohydrates do refuel your adrenals, and your cortisol can really take a hit in the absence of hormones. So we need to make sure that we are not starving our bodies. We need to make sure that we are moving. If you are too fatigued to really do intense workouts, just walk. Walking really regulates your cortisol. It burns fat beautifully. It's the most underrated form of exercise. If it's cold, snowy weather where you are, like, you can get a walking pad or a stationary bike. Just do some gentle cardio just to get your blood flowing and some calories burned. And of course, strength training is important, but like fueling your body differently in midlife is really important. And I have seen more women lose weight from bumping up their calories than any other diet they've tried. And I know this because I get my ladies to track on a MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, and they see how little they're eating. And when they don't believe me, I'm like, ladies, when I worked in hospitals, when patients were intubated on respirators lying in bed, they were eating, we were fueling them with on tube feedings or intravenous feedings, 12 to 1800 calories, just lying there and breathing. So don't tell me you think you can fuel your body on 1200 calories a day when you're working out, you have a job, you're meeting the needs of your family or running a home. I'm like, that's such a myth. So refueling is really important. And then there was a second question you asked, but I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. That was the menopause.
The menopause. Okay. Yes. So that being said, I do have a subset of clients who do track their food, who are meeting their macros, who are strength training, and their fasting insulin is still elevated. It's 7 to 12. It should be under 5. And their glucose is still running in the high 90s to low 100s. Those women benefit from metformin, which it's an old medication for type 2 diabetes, but it works. It was what was around before the GLP-1s. Or GLP-1s can also be a wonderful adjunct too, and it's not a dieting fail. It's not any failure on your part. It's a failure of your biology at this point because your cells are not so receptive to insulin in midlife. So if you're doing all the things, not moving the needles, a GLP-1, especially when combined with HRT, when a GLP-1 is combined with HRT, it's 15% more effective. There is now published medical research that shows this. So getting on hormones, if you don't want to do a GLP-1 out of the gate, getting on hormones. There is a supplement called CaloCurb. I have no affiliation with it, but I've tried it myself and I found it gave me GI pain, but I've had other clients that have had good success with it. It does decrease your appetite, but metformin can really help improve insulin sensitivity, although it does not change your appetite. GLP-1s improve insulin sensitivity and they slow down motility of food through your GI tract. So food stays in your stomach longer, so you're less hungry and you fill up easier on meals. And it does also get rid of that food noise and chatter. And the most interesting thing about that is I have so many clients who were fat shamed as girls, and so they always have that inner voice, that inner asshole, I call it, being like, don't eat that, it's gonna make you fat. Oh, you're looking chubby right now, don't eat that, shame. And it's like this shame blame cycle. So the GLP-1s totally shut that off, which is glorious for a lot of women because then they never feel guilty when they're eating.
Really? So it does. I mean, I knew that it takes away the cravings, but I didn't realize, and that food noise, but I didn't realize that it would take away that feelings of shame, because I'm not people who are on the GLP-1s and they're eating their Twinkies and their donuts and they're like, wow, I can eat this and still lose weight. And so I'm like, okay, I don't think you're supposed to be doing that way. Okay. But there it happens. But I think I didn't realize that it would also take away that I shouldn't be eating this, or this is going to go straight to my hips, even if you know that's okay to eat. I didn't know that.
Well, it takes away the guilt from not being in control, in quotes, in
Mm.
control of your eating.
Mm.
Right. And so they're like, oh, you overate again. You're so fat. How could you do that?
Mm.
And then and they wake up and then they feel shame and then they wake up the next morning and the whole cycle begins of every calorie. There's this great scene from Eat, Pray, Love, the movie,
Mhm.
where Julia Roberts is like, I'm so tired of counting every calorie and seeing how much shame and loathing I can take into the shower the next morning. And I put the post on my Instagram because it's so powerful because we've all been there and done that. So imagine not feeling in control, or by the way, you're not always in control, because when your estrogen is on a roller coaster ride, you're not always in control of your eating because you are ravenous. I was almost 10 pounds heavier in the height of my perimenopause because I was starving all the time. I was waking up ravenously hungry at 3 a.m. and I was ravenous. I had to have 3 meals plus a snack the size of another meal just to avoid that 3 a.m. wake up. And if I tried to decrease my calories, I was up all night starving. It was
Mhm.
like I was trapped. And so when you can get out of that cycle, it's liberating because all of a sudden you're not ashamed because you have assistance at being
Mhm.
in control. You have support. So I'm not, and it's funny, I do present it as an option to a lot of my clients. Very few of them take it. They're like, I don't want it. They see it as a failure, or it's expensive because they're not type 2 diabetic. So it could be $300 for supply. And or they just say, I don't like needles, or I just don't want to. I don't feel, they're nervous about it.
Yeah.
The good news is and it's every woman's choice. I'm like, that, no worries, we'll work around it. There's no do or die at all. I'm never attached to it. But the good news is with GLP-1s, I see good results even when women are on a half dose. They don't necessarily need the full dose.
Mm.
And there's far fewer side effects with a half a dose. So that's the other thing I tell them. You can space this out and then it makes it more cost effective and then you don't have the side effects.
This is in, I could have a whole episode with you on GLP-1s to learn more about it and the women in your community using it. The women in my community are using it. Not everyone, but like you said, some like
Yeah.
it, some don't. I did interview, oh, I can't remember her name anymore, someone on eating disorders. And I said, well, it seems GLP-1s could really help with the food noise. And she says, yes, but the moment you go off of it, it comes back. And so it's not really solving the problem. So I think anyone who's going on the GLP-1s, even if it's a low dose, it sounds like it may need to be for the rest of your life. And like you said, it's quite
Yeah.
expensive until we have alternatives, right? Because everyone's talking about, because who wants to inject? I'm sorry, I hate injecting, but I think that there's a lot of people like me who'd be like, oh, maybe, you'd be interested in it, but no way I'm injecting.
And that is why optimizing your protein is so important, because protein is the only nutrient that shuts off the hunger mechanism in the brain and gives you true satiety. So if you don't bump up your protein, you're going to lose muscle. So that is not the goal. Don't think that you can write checks your body cannot cash. If you have only Twinkies on GLP-1s, you're going to wreck your body composition. So you still have to do protein, you still have to lift weights. Now, the goal is, to me, my goal is to get women doing more strength training so that they can and need to eat more.
Mhm.
The leanest women I know are eating at least 2,000, sometimes up to 2,500 calories a day. They're having at least 150 to 180 grams of carbs a day, and they're on at least 150 grams of protein a day, and they are lifting heavy. Because if they don't eat enough, they don't have the strength and energy to work out, and they cannot build lean muscle. So my goal is, yes, initially, I love to meet women where they're at and give them those so-called vanity metrics, which, by the way, also help eliminate inflammation, help reduce cholesterol and cardiac risk, help normalize blood sugar. So we get them over the metabolic hump where, they're sleeping again, they have energy, they're regulating their appetite. And then introducing, if they're not already doing strength training, doing progressive overload, where you slowly bump up the volume of weights that you're lifting and increase the poundage of weights that you're lifting. And then they can taper down off the GLP-1s, do them every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and then eventually go off. And your appetite, it will be regulated under those circumstances. And it's totally possible to not regain the weight, but you must do all the things. It's a partnership. No one thing can do all the heavy lifting.
No, I agree. There's a lot of work to be done. It's just that it's such an easy route for so many people, and it's amazing how effective it is. But let's go. I got to wrap up here. I still have so many questions for you, and I want to have a rapid fire. But just to add to what you're saying, because this question about the woman who does everything right, I've seen so many of them come to my community as well. And they really are. I don't think that they're lying. I think they really are doing. And what I kind of default to very often is that I think that they're trying too hard. They're really pushing, like you said, maybe fasting, or they're eating very too low calorie, and they are exercising too much, and they're trying every single supplement on the planet. And I just strip them off of everything. I said, look, don't exercise, go for a walk. And if that's too much, just go do some stretching at home. But they get a lot of fear, like, what? If, I'm already like this. If I were to stop exercising and eating more, which is basically what I'm telling them, and then work a lot on the nervous system, because it seems as they're just, not only they're stressed out emotionally, mentally, because they're putting so much effort, they're trying so hard, that the moment we just kind of stop everything, just stop and work on yourself in your nervous system, things start to regulate. And that's quite effective for some of the women who are just overloaded doing everything right.
Correct. Because if their cortisol is in the toilet, you can't pour from an empty bucket. So we do have to also get your cortisol curve up and regulated, or alternatively tamp down your cortisol if it's too high. And again, it's really hard to regulate that if you're doing interval training and starving yourself. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is regulating, which is beautiful.
Okay, rapid fire now. I'm going to end with the rapid fire, and I just want you to say whatever comes to your mind. No need for long explanations. Your favorite breakfast?
Protein smoothie, a dollop of Greek yogurt. It's this one I use called Icelandic Provisions. It's super high. It's 17 grams of protein and I think 3/4 cup. And then I do a scoop of whey protein, a scoop of collagen, 1 to 2 tablespoons of flax seeds, and a banana, and a shot of like hemp milk. And that's my morning smoothie.
Yum. Fasting in menopause?
Really individual, works for some, but very few. It's really a 12-hour fast is fine, but more than that gets really tricky for a lot of women. Now, that being said, and there isn't a lot of research on intermittent fasting in women, let alone menopausal women. So for some women, it's great. For most women, the opposite is true. When we start fueling their body more is when we see the needle move.
Cardio versus strength training?
Oh, I mean, both. It's really a lot of walking and 2 to 3 days a week of strength training.
HRT?
A must.
Hormone testing?
Very helpful especially once you have started using hormones. A baseline is nice, but if you're in perimenopause, it's a moving target. So if your doctor won't do a baseline or provider, have them do it after you've started introducing HRT for 6 to 8 weeks, and also monitoring your symptoms. But I do think testing is important because, especially for estrogen, you do want to have a certain baseline level for bone density.
Hormone detox supplements?
I have heard some of them work. I have not seen it in practice, but I really haven't done a lot of work with it either.
Stress management?
Number 1, because stress drives hormones from the top down. So whatever is going on in your head, whatever trauma, whatever grief, whatever stress is going to impact more than anything perimenopause, your progesterone levels, which will impact your sleep, your anxiety, your body composition. So stress regulation management is a must. It only takes 10 minutes of deep breathing every day to lower your cortisol. That's it. So it's a non-negotiable.
One habit you swear by every morning.
Walking and outside in the sun every morning. Now, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite right now because there's 2 feet of snow outside my window. So I bought a walking pad. I'm not outside as much as I should be right now. But otherwise, like 3/4 of the year, 10/12 of the year, I'm doing that. Yes.
One thing women should stop blaming themselves for.
Weight gain.
Wonderful answers. Okay, I'm gonna have to let you go. I think we need a part two because I didn't even get
Yeah.
to my questions, but I want to share a little bit before we go. You've got your menopause coaching and you got a freebie for us, some top hormone tests that every perimenopausal woman needs to know. Tell us a little bit more
Yes.
what you're offering here.
Yeah, so this is a guide of that you can print out and take to your provider and say, I want to get these tests done. If you think you're in perimenopause, if you're cycling regularly, you should have these tests done between days 19 and 21 of your cycle. If you're late perimenopause, days 1 to 5 of your cycle, but it's a really handy guide that you can have. And of course, listen to my podcast, The Midlife Realignment. Join me on Instagram at Gorgeous Esther, and I'm here to support.
Excellent. I'll have links to this in the show notes, and your website, estherblum.com, has everything as well. Loads of information there. Thank you so much, Esther, for your time. And thank you, everyone who's made it to the end of the podcast. We appreciate your time, and you're obviously very interested in this topic. So please hang out for more and follow Esther, and you're going to learn a ton. Thank you, Esther.